Have you ever found yourself doing something automatically, like almost without thinking, whether it's actually good for you or not? Or maybe you've tried to make some big change, set a resolution, only to find yourself maybe a few weeks later right back in those old patterns. We've all been there, I think. So today we're taking a deep dive into this really fascinating world of habit formation and behavioral change. Our mission here is basically to unpack how habits work, why they have such a powerful grip on us, and really importantly, how you can harness that power, how you can create lasting positive change in your life, or, maybe even within a whole organization. We've pulled together a great stack of sources for this one, everything from like Reddit summaries of bestsellers like Charles Duhigg's The Power of Habit, to research on consumer behavior, insights from experts on organizational change, personal development, lots of good stuff.
Yeah, and what's really amazing here, what the sources really drive home, is just how universal these ideas are. It really doesn't matter if you're, just trying to remember to brush your teeth more often or set up a new morning routine or, like you said, lead a huge company-wide shift. The basic mechanics of how we pick up or drop behaviors are, well, surprisingly similar across the board. We'll get into the science, the strategies, and hopefully, spark some of those aha moments. Okay, let's get into it.
Okay, let's start right at the foundation then. That core idea Charles Duhigg really brought to the mainstream, the habit loop. Can you kind of walk us through what that is and why is it so fundamental to understanding how we operate day to day?
Absolutely. The habit loop, it's this neurological pattern that basically drives every single habit. Often we don't even realize it's happening. It's actually pretty simple. It breaks down into three main parts. There's the cue, the routine, and the reward. So the cue is like the trigger, right? It's anything that tells your brain, okay, time to switch into autopilot. This could be something external, like seeing a pack of cigarettes or an email notification popping up, or even just the time of day, like maybe 3 p.m. means coffee break time. And internal cues are just as powerful, things like feeling stressed or bored or hungry.
Okay, so that's the trigger. What happens next?
Well, once that cue hits, you automatically perform the routine. That's the actual behavior itself. So lighting the cigarette, clicking open the email without thinking, heading to the coffee machine, or maybe scrolling through social media when you feel that boredom cue. And then finally, there's the reward. This is the benefit you get from the routine, the thing that satisfies the craving the cue created. It could be feeling happier or getting a distraction, that caffeine jolt, feeling accomplished after exercise. Anything that signals to your brain, hey, this loop is worth remembering.
Okay, so the brain basically creates these loops to save energy, right? To automate things.
Exactly. It's the basal ganglia, that sort of autopilot part of the brain, taking over. It means less conscious decision-making, less effort. So the real power, the sources suggest, isn't trying to fight that loop head-on with just willpower. It's about understanding it and then, intelligently re-engineering it.
Re-engineering it. I like that. It feels less like a battle. So if our brains are wired for this autopilot, how do we intentionally create new habits, good habits that actually stick?
Yeah, that's the crucial question, isn't it? And the sources, like that Reddit summary of Duhigg, offer some really practical steps for individuals. First, you need a simple and obvious cue. Make it super easy for your brain to know when it's time to start the new routine. Like really obvious.
Okay, simple cue. Got it.
Second, you have to clearly define the rewards. What's the actual benefit? What are you getting out of this? If you read more, maybe the reward is knowledge or just escape. If you floss, it's a healthier smile, maybe avoiding painful dentist visits. But the reward doesn't have to be some huge thing. It could be as simple as, letting yourself watch an episode of a show you like, or just that little hit of satisfaction from checking something off your list.
Right, that makes sense. It doesn't have to be life-changing every time.
Exactly. And the third step, which is really interesting, is to actively expect and cultivate the craving for that reward. It sounds a bit weird, but by focusing on the positive feeling the reward gives you, you actually start to develop a neurological craving for the reward itself, which then pulls you through the routine.
So you train your brain to want the good outcome. Like if checking off a task feels good, you start wanting that feeling of completion itself.
Precisely. You build the anticipation.
That's really practical. It makes me think about setting things up, like putting workout clothes right by the bed. That's the obvious cue.
Right.
Or having a healthy snack ready before you get bored, so the cue leads to the good routine. It's like designing your environment.
It absolutely is. Environmental design is huge. And speaking of building habits, we should probably address that myth, the 21-day rule.
Oh yeah, everyone seems to quote that one. It takes 21 days to form a habit. Is that not true?
Well, the research suggests it's not quite that simple. That number seems to come from a misinterpretation of some older work. A more recent study, I think it was in the European Journal of Social Psychology, found the average time is actually closer to 66 days. 66.
66 days, wow. Okay, that's quite a bit longer.
It is. And it can vary wildly, too, depending on the person, the complexity of the habit. Could be shorter, it could be much longer.
That actually explains a lot, like why my grand plan to learn coding kind of fizzled out around week 4.
Yeah.
It's almost a relief, knowing it's scientifically harder than just 3 weeks and you're done. It's not just me being lazy.
Exactly. It highlights the need for real persistence. It means we probably need to be way more patient with ourselves, maybe more forgiving. It's about consistency over a longer haul.
Patience and persistence. Okay, so that's building good habits. What about the other side? Those habits we want to break, the autopilot stuff that's not doing us any favors.
Right, breaking bad habits. This is where Duhigg's golden rule of habit change is really powerful. The core idea is you don't try to eliminate the habit loop entirely. Instead, you keep the cue, you keep the reward, but you replace the routine.
Keep the cue, keep the reward, replace the routine.
Okay, can you give an example? Sure. Let's say you snack on chips when you're bored. The cue is boredom. The reward is probably distraction, maybe a little comfort. Instead of trying to just not be bored or not want distraction, which is hard, you keep the cue, boredom, and the need for the reward, distraction. But you consciously insert a new routine. Maybe instead of grabbing chips, you go for a quick walk or listen to a song or call a friend for a minute. You're still getting a reward distraction, a mood shift, but via a healthier or at least different routine.
That makes a lot of sense. You're hijacking the existing loop instead of trying to build a whole new one from scratch.
Exactly. You're working with the brain's existing wiring.
But what if the cue is something really pervasive, like just the stress of a normal workday? That's hard to avoid. Or what if the reward I'm really craving is that instant dopamine hit from social media and like doing 5 minutes of mindfulness just doesn't feel like the same reward?
That's a really good point, and it gets into the practical challenges. The American Heart Association actually has a helpful framework. There are 6 steps to changing habits that addresses some of this. First, identify your cues, even stress. Learn to recognize when it triggers the habit. Second, try to disrupt the pattern somehow. If your alarm is the cue to hit snooze, maybe put the alarm across the room. Force a change. Third, replace the routine like we just discussed. Social media for boredom. Try a book or a podcast instead. Fourth, and this is key, keep it simple. New routines are hard at first. Make the replacement as easy and low friction as possible. Don't try to replace doom scrolling with writing a novel immediately.
Keep it simple. Okay, that seems achievable.
Fifth, think long-term. Remind yourself why you're making the change. Connect the small action now to the bigger future benefit you want. And finally, number 6 is persist. It goes back to that 66-day average. It will feel unnatural at first, but keep at it, and the new behavior eventually becomes second nature.
Okay, identify, disrupt, replace, simplify, think long-term, persist. That's a solid roadmap. It reminds me of that AHA example about Mike changing his lifestyle, swapping chips for celery, but also managing his phone use, even getting his doghouse trained. It shows it's not instant, but these subtle, consistent steps really do add up.
They absolutely do. Consistency is the secret sauce.
Okay, so this is where things get really interesting for me. This idea that some habits have like an outsized impact, a kind of domino effect. What are these keystone habits?
Ah, yes, keystone habits. They're fascinating. They're basically routines that, once you establish them, seem to unintentionally spark other positive changes. They create ripple effects.
Ripple effects? Like how?
Well, James Clear talks about exercise as a classic example. Someone starts exercising regularly. That's the keystone habit. But then, often without consciously deciding to, they start eating better. Why? Maybe because they don't want to undo their workout. Then maybe they start sleeping better because they're physically tired. And better sleep and nutrition lead to more focus and productivity at work. See? The one habit triggered a cascade.
Wow. Okay. So focusing on one key area can automatically improve others.
Exactly. And it's not just personal. Think about that corporate example with Paul O'Neill at Alcoa, the aluminum company. When he became CEO, he made worker safety his absolute top priority, like an obsessive focus.
Safety, that seems important, obviously. But how is it a keystone habit for the whole company?
Because focusing intensely on safety forced changes in how the company operated. To improve safety, they needed better communication across departments. They needed better ways to analyze mistakes and failures without blame. These new routines, better communication, better analysis, weren't just about safety.